Speaking as Vice-Chancellor, I'm delighted that you have decided to obtain a copy of this year's graduation video. The ceremony, of course, is redolent of what you might have expected to have seen in a medieval monastery. However, the pageantry and the colour serve as vivid reminders of a remarkable day, which is the culmination of an extraordinary effort that you have made, supported by your family and friends. Newcastle University was recently awarded the title University of the Year, and the quality of our teaching played a major role in that assessment. I hope that now that you're leaving the university that you will join the Alumni Association and will play an active role in it. I also hope that we'll have an opportunity to welcome you back to Newcastle from time to time. And I'd particularly like to take this opportunity to wish you well in your future career.
Now, when you've been seated, if they've got the cap right in here, I forgot to double check it, over, you can pick them up and take them out with you. Cardinal rule of, it's slightly different to our normal ceremonies because you've got honoured guests. Okay. concentration on those spaces, not a smile for the world on the internet. Were you the last one?
declare open this congregation, which is held for the conferment of degrees.
Mr. Chancellor, I certify that the candidates to be presented at this congregation have satisfied all the requirements of the University. Mr. Chancellor, the Acting Provost of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences prays leave to present the candidates who are qualified to proceed to degrees in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. Madam Provost.
Mr. Chancellor, I present to you candidates to be admitted to the degrees of Master and Doctor in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences.
By the authority of the University, I admit these candidates to the degrees for which they are now to be presented.
The following candidate is presented for the degree of Master of Business Administration. Rachi Jigao. The following candidate is presented for the degree of Master of Fine Arts. Karen Salt. The following candidates are presented for the degree of Master of Arts. John Lloyd Roberts. Ellie McKeevy. Andrew Power. McKinney Barnes. Sarah Charlesworth. Jennifer Ann Gray. Christopher David Reed. Suzanne Elizabeth Thomas. Elliot Ronald Gibbons. Kanyat Carson Ho. Mohammed Mofta Mohammed. Anne Elizabeth Clifford. Sam Croft. Anthony Charles Peter Pickering. Melanie Jane Waters. Kate Helen Belcher. Claire Frances Lutney. Jonathan Page Pearson. Gillian Lockhart Semple. Charlotte Jane Aquinas Cecilia Sutton. The following candidates are presented for the degree of Master of Letters. Ian Greenshields. Alexandra Margaret Olive. Dan Richard Carlaw. Catherine Ann Jones. Victoria Elizabeth Mosley Gardner. David Francis MacDonald. David George Young. The following candidates are presented for the degree of Master of Philosophy. Corinne Irene MacDonald Bell. Victoria Kate Buchanan. Daniel Arthur Hewitt. Donald McElhager. Slavica Mirovic. Hector Chapa Sikawe. The following candidates are presented for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Zoe Ann Colley. Christopher Goulding. Paul James Johnson. John Michael Lloyd. Adam Jonathan Lyons. Edward Francis Moran. Leanne Jane Parrott. The following candidate is presented for the degree of Doctor of Education, Michael John O'Neill.
Chancellor, the Provost of the Faculty of Medical Sciences prays leave to present candidates who are qualified to proceed to degrees in the Faculty of Medical Sciences.
The Provost.
Mr. Chancellor, I present to you candidates to be admitted to the degrees of Master and Doctor in the Faculty of Medical Sciences.
By the authority of the University, I admit these candidates to the degrees for which they are now to be presented.
The following candidate is presented for the degree of Master of Philosophy. Caroline Elizabeth Halbrook. The following candidates are presented for the degree of Doctor of Clinical Psychology. Christine Rona Baker. Andrea Jane Grimes. The following candidates are presented for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Ruth Alison Cragg. Ruth Mary Foxton. Penny Amanda Gray. Langpin Heath. Chrysula Leontiou. Helen Margaret Phillips. Andrea Tasker. Elizabeth Safia Daki. Rachel Claire Williams. The following candidates are presented for the degree of Doctor of Medicine. Jennifer Grace Cribb. Maurice Gallagher. Uma Nath. Keith Seymour.
Chancellor, the Acting Provost of the Faculty of Science, Agriculture and Engineering prays leave to present candidates who are qualified to proceed to degrees in the Faculty of Science, Agriculture and Engineering.
Mr. Provost. Mr. Chancellor, I present to you candidates to be admitted to the degrees of Master and Doctor in the Faculty of Science, Agriculture and Engineering. By the authority of the University, I admit these candidates to the degrees for which they are now to be presented. Luai Ben Latif. Mohammed Akram. Vikas Gai. Abubakar Hassan Mohammed. Angela Gould. Simon David Jackson. The following candidate is presented for the degree of Master of Philosophy: Richard Byron Scott. The following candidates are presented for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy: Emil Almazovich Bakayev. Catherine Emma Burtonshaw. Cécile Dominique Brugère. Yinwei Chen. Ross Edward Darnell. Adrian John Dunford. Simon Robert Dunn. Shiamak Hashimi. Anna Maria Henderson. Caspar Julian Manser Hewitt. Peter Waldbury James. Jiongfang Li. Hua Lin. Elisa Lopez Capel. Adil Hussain Mohammed. Gordon James Phelps. Thomas Reichbeck. Dilong Shan. Ashley Lawrence Sharp. Stephen Richard Shorrock. Andrew Simpson. Maxine Stack. Ian Robert Tooley. James Ferguson Turner. Michael Whale. And Stephen Kahan Young.
The Senate has resolved to confer the degree of Doctor of Letters honoris causa upon Fiona Claire Reynolds.
Chancellor. When Fiona Reynolds became Director General of the National Trust in 2001, one of her first acts was to organise the transfer of her headquarters to Swindon, thus giving up her daily view over St James's Park. Admittedly, the park in question was the green one in London and not the beloved home of our football team, but it was nevertheless a decision that surprised many and met with some resistance from more traditional members of her organisation. One of the reasons Fiona was given this job was her ability to deal effectively and constructively with such controversy, and she continues to lead from the front with the enthusiastic support of her many admirers. Fiona was the youngest appointee to this position and the first woman, an appropriate career move for the head of the Women's Unit in the Cabinet Office. Prior to that post, she had established her credentials as a leader on countryside matters during her 11 years with the Council for the Protection of Rural England, especially as its director from 1992 to 1998. Her work there earned her the CDE. There can be little doubt that Fiona has the English countryside in her blood. She recalls her childhood being, in her words, dragged up mountains, through cathedrals, down caves and around ancient monuments. Her mother Margaret qualified in geography in this very building, and we're delighted to have her with us today. Fiona herself attended Newnham College in Cambridge, where she was influenced greatly by Lucy Adrian, her Director of Studies. Lady Adrian, in turn, remembers Fiona as just the sort of person who comes to mind when I think of my Newnham undergraduates. She was always fun, always positive, always had something interesting to say. Despite the mutual admiration, Fiona switched from geography and completed her Part 2 in land economy. She was awarded a first-class honours degree in 1979. She went on to earn a master's before achieving her first paid employment with the Council for National Parks. The then chair of that organisation recalls that one had a position against stiff opposition was her sheer, genuine enthusiasm for the post. Such was her impact, he made enthusiasm the quality he looked for first in all subsequent interviews he performed. Enthusiasm for work comes at a price. An early casualty was her viola playing. More recently, she's wrestled with the challenge familiar to so many modern families, how to fulfill work commitments and be a good parent. Her professional rise owes much to her husband Bob, who gave up work for a time to care for the last of their 3 daughters. Fiona is applying the same conditioning process to her daughters by dragging them all over the country to visit interesting places too. The sentence conjured in my mind my own family trips and my lamentable tendency to question, in moments of intense driving pressure, the female capacity to read maps. Lest any other males present are prone to such unacceptable sexist thoughts, I was impressed that Fiona's response on Radio 4's Desert Island Discs to the invitation to select one luxury was to ask to be incarcerated with a complete set of the Ordnance Survey maps. With the triple advantage of evangelical zeal, youth and female longevity, we can assume that the name Fiona Reynolds will be synonymous with the National Trust for a great many years to come. As leader of an organisation with 2.8 million members and a host to 60 million visitors a year, she has great influence. As keeper of 250 stately homes and purveyor of 45,000 daily cups of tea through the summer, she is, to paraphrase a recently departed dictator, the mother of all housewives. For many, she will be seen as the leading representative of the great landowners, and there is no doubt that the great estates are a central feature of the Trust. Indeed, the first estate, and still one of the largest, is at Wallington in Northumberland. But the driving force is not grandeur but history. She believes in the importance of historic buildings as a focus for national identity. She's just as attracted to modern as ancient history. For example, she acquired the Liverpool birthplace of Sir Paul McCartney, an act which prompted Yoko Ono to reciprocate with the donation of John Lennon's original home. I hope these treasures give comfort to the people of Liverpool when we beat them in the City of Culture 2004. This concept of historic anchorage provides an interesting link to our own university. Before the award of our separate charter, we formed part of the University of Durham. Durham in turn owes its existence to the seat of learning established around the cathedral by the Prince Bishops. That cathedral was built around the tomb of St Cuthbert, whose monastic brethren transferred his remains from their original burial place on Holy Island or Lindisfarne. Before the destruction of the Viking raids, Lindisfarne was one of Europe's most prestigious seats of learning, under the protection of the Anglo-Saxon kings of Northumbria, whose territory extended at its peak from Hull to Edinburgh. Our university then is built on 1,500 years of academic endeavour, and Fiona Reynolds is custodian of its birthplace. Mr. Chancellor, she has travelled literally and metaphorically a long way in a short time. From grammar school girl with a passion for maths to leadership of an organisation with 4,000 employees, 40,000 volunteers, and responsible for over 600,000 acres and 600 miles of the coastline of our island home. In acknowledgement of her past contribution to and her future custodianship of our land and its historic treasures, I ask that you confer on Fiona Reynolds the degree of Doctor of Letters honoris causa.
By the authority of the University, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Letters honoris causa.
Senate has resolved to confer the degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa upon Herbert Lobel.
Mr. Chancellor, stars shine in the daytime, but the brightness of the sun blinds us to their brilliance. After the Second World War, the intensity of feeling generated by the experiences of the Jewish people trapped by the Holocaust in continental Europe obscured the challenges faced by the lucky few who escaped to safe countries like our own. But try to imagine the emotional trauma of a 15-year-old boy called Herbert Lobel as he stepped off the ferry alone in Dover on the 6th of December 1938, unable to speak English, unsure whether the rest of his family would escape from their hometown of Bamberg in Bavaria. His immediate family did survive, but both his grandmothers were swallowed by the Nazi darkness. The family's permission to enter depended on his father continuing his work in engineering manufacturing in one of the special, that is, the depressed areas. Mr. Lobel Sr. chose the Northeast, and so it was that this former German grammar school boy, a year after being thrown out of his school because he was Jewish, found himself serving an apprenticeship in Gateshead. Immediately after the war, during which he worked for a couple of years in an aircraft factory in London, he arrived at the door of our university to study for a degree in engineering, and was awarded his first degree, a BSc in electrical engineering, in 1949. Just 2 years later, in partnership with another young engineer, Captain Robert Joyce, the son of a former Jarrow shipyard worker, he founded the Electronics and Scientific Instrument Company, which was incorporated later that same year as Joyce Lobel and Co. Limited. Their factory was in the Railway Arch, near Newcastle's quayside, and their capital was £200. In place of a research budget, he and his partner came to see if the university had any good ideas. This led in 1953 to their first licensing agreement to make a piece of medical equipment in partnership with our medical school. That photodensitometer became known the world over, and an example is now on show at the Science Museum. In 1954, Herbert Lobel managed to get an audience at the Ministry of Defence and succeeded in attracting one group captain, Ridley, to the factory, by now housed in a condemned former school near the City Hall. Despite their small size, the visitor decided to give them a chance and a contract. What he didn't know was that Herbert had borrowed their neighbour's ground floor office for the day because it looked more impressive and had populated it with a variety of acquaintances as extras, all in their best clothes and on strict instructions not to say anything. Despite occasional setbacks, the company continued to flourish and eventually acquired premises in the Team Valley trading estate, Gateshead, where his late father had started work. The founders sold their shareholding in 1969, Dr. Lobel continued as chairman until 1974. The company has grown and prospered and is now the manufacturing and electronics centre of excellence within the Screen Group, a major supplier of security and communication systems. One branch, Joyce Lobel Products Limited, became Applied Imaging, now part of an American company and the first business occupant of the Bioscience Centre, our Centre for Life. Dr. Lobel helped create a second company, Optica UK, in 1957, and the third, Sevcon Engineering, involved in production of electrically powered vehicles, for which he was managing director from 1961 to 1970. Like his first, Sevcon won a Queen's Award to Industry, and in 1973 he was awarded the OBE for his major contribution to British exports. But this is only part of the story. The early link to the university gave rise to a whole philosophy of the learning company, a concept decades ahead of the thinking of other industrialists. An analysis by Paul Benowith of our university revealed that Herbert Lobel's company in a railway arch became a goldmine of talented engineering entrepreneurs who collectively went out to found over 40 UK companies, many in the Northeast, a record unequalled in post-war Europe. In 1973, he was co-founder of Enterprise North, devoted to encouragement of and support for new, mainly manufacturing businesses in the 70s and 80s. And in the 70s and 80s, chaired a related new enterprise development project with Durham Business School. In 1981, founded and ran for 10 years the management consultancy New Business North. Throughout this long and successful career, Herbert Lobel was committed to the creation of profitable businesses, but was not primarily motivated by becoming rich. For him, a great stimulus was to contribute to society. A key phrase was Shemtov, Hebrew for good name. He was a principal founder of the Friends of Newcastle Museum of Science and Engineering in 1973, and around that time spent 7 years as chair of the Northumberland Rural Economic Development Committee. He has a lifelong love of music, and his support of the arts includes time in the 60s as the Arts Council representative on the board of Northern Symphonia. When briefly interned on the Isle of Man during the war, he recalls being thrilled to be offered a clarinet part in a piece written by one of his talented fellow interns. When he was told to go home just prior to their performance at the camp, his father had to step in to prevent him declining release. He has not forgotten his roots, making major contributions to restoring the Jewish community in his native Bamberg, work for which he was awarded several honours, including the Cross of the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany. Despite a busy life as an industrialist, Herbert Loebel has maintained an active role as an academic. From 1949 to 1954, he taught at the Rutherford College of Technology, a forerunner of the University of Northumbria. In 1978, he earned a Masters of Philosophy from Durham University for his thesis on refugee industries in the special areas of Northern England, 1937 to 61, and then went on to complete a thesis on government regional policy during the years 1934 to 48, for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy from our own university, under the supervision of our now Deputy Vice-Chancellor, John Goddard. Dr. Loebel is an expert on the history of our university and its separation from Durham University. He's been a member of our university court since 1972. Mr. Chancellor, it's hard to think of a darker cloud than that which cast its shadow over the family and the people of Herbert Loebel. But that cloud had a silver lining. It gave our region a young man who did not succumb to self-pity. He did not become a burden on the state. He learned, he built, he created, and has become an honorary Geordie. His memoirs are titled Outsider In. It is my honour, Mr. Chancellor, to ask you to welcome him in to our most honoured community of scholars by conferring on him the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
By the authority of the University, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
Senate has resolved to confer the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa, upon Fred Barry Schneider.
Mr. Chancellor, a few days ago we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the discovery of the structure of DNA. Subsequent breaking of the genetic code and the completion of the Human Genome Project has been hailed by some as the greatest scientific advance in centuries. That advance was only possible because of another equally profound development, that great British invention, the computer. Over the last 30 years, the computer has moved from a glorified adding machine the size of a small house to immensely powerful tiny devices at the core of every aspect of our lives. Nowhere is that more obvious than in our academic world. Every aspect of teaching and research rests on the computer, and most academics spend hours every day at the computer screen. Our university has one of Europe's most prestigious computing science departments. For 30 years we organised a renowned international seminar of computer science, and on 2 occasions we were honoured by the presence as a speaker of Fred B. Schneider, Professor of Computer Science at Cornell University in New York since 1993. Fred Schneider has lived and breathed computing science since his high school meeting with some old computer equipment. He was one of the pupils with, as he put it, a bent towards puttering with electronics. He was at first preoccupied by the fancy wiring and entered Cornell University as an undergraduate in electrical engineering. A year later he switched to a self-defined double major, computer science and electrical engineering. He was in effect the first undergraduate at that university in this field, since it had been taught only as a postgraduate qualification up to that point. In 1975 he went from Cornell to State University of New York at Stony Brook, where he earned a master's and then a PhD in the subject. Having started graduate school expecting to head into industry, he realised research was too much fun and decided to seek a faculty position. To his surprise and delight, his alma mater, Cornell University, one of the world's leading computer science departments, offered him a faculty position. His prolific career as an author of scientific articles and books began 25 years ago and now includes over 120 important publications and conference proceedings. Early forays into print include his report based on his presentation in Jerusalem in 1978 entitled On Language Restrictions to Ensure Deterministic Behaviour in Concurrent Systems. It's noteworthy that his titles become more accessible as one reads down his publications, such as a paper in the press called Tolerating Malicious Gossip, or his recent books on concurrent programming and trust in cyberspace. The former is now cited as essential reading for those involved in the field, while the latter had its origins in the Committee on Trustworthy Computing. This group, which he chaired, was established by the US National Research Council. He is Editor-in-Chief of Distributed Computing, on the editorial board of 6 key research journals and managing editor for a prestigious book series published by Springer Verlag. It's clear that Fred Schneider has earned the respect of his peers. He's been nominated for the Distinguished Service Award by ACN, the world's first and largest society for computer scientists. In 2001, the UK EPSRC, one of our government research councils, invited him to chair their International Review of Computer Science. He's a member of the influential Programming Methodology Working Group of the International Federation of Information Processing Societies and has served or chaired over 30 international program committees. Last but most certainly not least, he has the confidence of industry. He's an advisor, among others, to Intel, IBM, Microsoft, JavaSoft, and the genetic research company Decode Genetics. As I prepared this presentation, my wife told me that her sister's credit card details had been stolen following a web-based purchase. I was brought back to the ubiquitous role of the computer and the pivotal importance of security, not least in my own field of genetic testing. Not only do we have the threat of criminals, but now we also have the threat of terrorism. I'm sure others share my comfort in knowing that Fred is Chief Scientist for New York's recently created Cybersecurity Griffith Institute for Information Assurance. We need Fred Schneider and others like him to protect the fabric of our 21st century society. We need him as a communicator and a teacher. His book, A Logical Approach to Discrete Math, published 10 years ago, has become a popular teaching aid in the development of a new generation of defenders of cyberspace. By now, many will have begun to imagine Fred as the first officer on the Starship Enterprise. So I thought we should try to see something of the man behind the towering reputation. My niece was able to help by hacking into his home computer to discover that there are many clear human characteristics. He hates sport, for example. He enjoys sand-high musicals, jazz, food and wine. He loves collecting, though the maps given away by car hire firms is different. Having earned extra income as Professor at Large in Tromsø University, Norway, he bought a sailing boat on Cayuga Lake, to which he gave the name Prophet Large. His perfectionist nature extends to investment of considerable time in every aspect of his boat's anatomy. It's clear that there are many demands on Fred Schneider's time, and his department back at Cornell misses him. Indeed, they have afforded him godlike status. God is everywhere, while Fred is everywhere except at Cornell University. They are, nevertheless, delighted by the honour he receives today. It is to be hoped that this honorary degree further enhances the working relationship between our universities. Mr. Chancellor, for his outstanding academic contribution to the field of computer science and recognition of his international status as a guardian of the silicon foundations of our world, I ask you to confer on Fred V. Schneider the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
By the authority of the University, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
Senate has resolved to confer the degree of Doctor of Civil Law, honoris causa, upon Robert William Robson.
Mr. Chancellor, it's almost too easy to present Sir Bobby Robson for an honorary degree. The former manager of England, who took us to the brink of winning the World Cup in 1990 and has made Newcastle United one of the world's leading football clubs. His recent 70th birthday celebration attracted international media coverage, as did the knighthood bestowed last year. For those who are not followers of the beautiful game, Bobby left the North East to become a professional footballer at Fulham and later represented his country 20 times. But it's been his managerial career which has set him apart. Apart from his 8 years leading the national side, he's achieved success with some of the world's greatest club sides, PSV Eindhoven, Porto, Sporting Lisbon, Barcelona. A recent documentary included accolades from stars like Ronaldo, Figo, Van Nistelrooy and of course our own Alan Shearer. In that programme, Bobby spoke of the misery of losing his first job and the fistfight with two old pros in the dressing room when he took over at Ipswich. From that unlikely beginning, he built Ipswich into a team which went on to win the FA Cup and the European competition, the UEFA Cup. If not a silk purse from a sow's ear, certainly an impressive bit of embroidery. While these sporting successes will be sufficient grounds for most football supporters to justify the reward of a local lad, what of the rest? What grounds do we offer to our rugby and cricket lovers, or even my academic colleagues who support Sunderland? The answer must surely be his achievements on behalf of our city and our region, and the example he sets to us all. 3 years ago, Linda and I flew into the depths of China on a Dragonair flight to Chengdu, and I noticed my neighbour's newspaper. Shooting across the front page was a throng of black and white clad players around Dabizas, our Greek centre-back, who just scored in an FA Cup match. Unable to communicate with the passenger or read what was written there, I had to wait until we landed to find out the score. How else would our city achieve such international recognition? In the past, our international acknowledgement lay in the phrase "calls to Newcastle," a saying widespread in the English-speaking world, born in the days when our river was the primary route from the great coalfield to London. It was in that coalfield that Bobby's father, and Bobby himself as a boy, earned a living. And just as most of that coal seam still lies here beneath our feet, so the influences of that childhood lie at the core of this great man. Bobby was born in Sacriston and grew up in the pit village of Langley Park, in a rented terrace house with 4 brothers and his parents. He remarked to one interviewer that the toilet was in the garden and the fun was in the street. I grew up in a similar environment a few miles away in West Auckland. I share memories of the dark evening journey to the outside ash closet in the yard carrying a lantern, and also the surprise of being disturbed by cool air and a shaft of sunlight if you happened to be enthroned on the morning when the dustman, then a literal term, opened the small door onto the street to begin removing the fire ash and human contributions. There was material poverty then and now, but we were not poor. Bobby had a strong and supportive family and went on to enjoy the support of his wife and life partner Elsie. He had self-respect and ambition. He learned perhaps more easily then that you're judged not by the quality of your suit, but by the strength of your spirit. The Robson name in the North East can be traced back to one of the large border clans. The Robsons were the dominant family in Tynedale, where they teamed up with 2 of the tribes, the Charltons and the Milburns, to prove a considerable problem with the authorities, so it's perhaps not surprising football is something of a surrogate for warfare. This descendant of the Robson clan has always been an excellent example of good behaviour. One of his most vivid memories was being late home as a child from a village fair. The instant retribution he received from his father reinforced his subsequent insistence on punctuality. He's replaced such physical chastisement with hefty fines of £200 plus £50 a minute for any player arriving late for training or team talks. Bobby Robson has set standards throughout his working life, which have been a major influence on our national game. Now in the autumn of his years, he continues to challenge the assumptions of our society, this time by being so unfashionably wrinkled. It was a surprise to many when he returned to leave Newcastle United in 1999, already past the official retirement age. He was, and is, well aware of the tens of thousands of other would-be team managers waiting to attribute failure on the pitch to his advancing years. But he defies the outdated assumptions that we should seek to retire at the earliest opportunity to the comfort of a pampered decline. He does what he enjoys, and he enjoys what he does. He's too old and too wise to be misled by passing trends. He is at one and the same time an echo of a bygone age when the old were our most respected citizens and perhaps a role model for the 21st century. We have banished discrimination on the basis of sex, race and religion, but discrimination on the basis of age persists. As I advance through my own 6th decade, I look up to Bobby as he marches into his 8th. Arbitrary age limits should be filed alongside the solemn 19th century declaration that women's brains were ill-equipped for learning. So what if he sometimes forgets young players' names? He knows those players better than they know themselves. Chancellor, in recognition of his great leadership and the demonstration of what people from our region can achieve on the world stage, I ask that you award Sir Bobby Robson a Doctorate of Civil Law honoris causa.
By the authority of the University, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Civil Law, honoris causa. Before closing the congregation, perhaps I could say one or two things very briefly. I don't want to spoil what is an otherwise enjoyable occasion by speaking for too long. First of all, it will be apparent to most of you who saw my entry into this great hall that I'm unlikely to be one of the between-seasons signings. It's just possible that the manager of Exeter City may have me in mind. I don't think my ambitions go beyond that, and I would like to thank those who've made it possible for me to be present today by pushing me, carrying me, heaving me, and generally dumping me from place to place. I'm extremely grateful. I want to make 3 points. First of all, I'd like to say to our honorary graduates what a great privilege it is for us to be able to honour them today. To be able to honour them for the reasons which were set out so well by the public orator. To honour Fiona Reynolds for all that she has done to protect the countryside of this country from the depredations of what is hootingly described as progress. To Dr. Lovell for his extraordinary personal courage. A story, a biography which sheds some light on a dark century. For his industrial contribution to the Northeast and his contribution as well to this university and its relationship with the wider community. Professor Schneider for his work at literally the cutting edge of modern science and modern scholarship. And it is a great privilege, particularly for an almost entirely technophobic chancellor, to be able to use those words, though I'm hoping to do better in my 7th decade. And finally to Sir Bobby Robson. I think it's fair to say that it's not only his knighthood but his career that remind us that chivalry is not a medieval concept. I think it's a great tragedy that the word professional has been devalued over the years, so that we talk, for example, about a professional foul. I think Bobby Robson is a reminder to all of us that you can be a supreme professional and a gentleman. The second thing I want to say is to congratulate all those who have earned their spurs through scholarly endeavour. All those who've slaved over the kitchen table and the half-empty bottle of milk into the middle hours of the night in order to accomplish what you have been congratulated for here today. I know in particular the additional sacrifice that many people have to make in order to attain a further degree, a master's degree or a doctorate. The sacrifices that not only you make, but that are made by your family and friends. So they deserve our congratulations today as well. We've applauded all of you quite properly as you've received your degrees. But it may be that those of you who have received your degrees today would like to show your appreciation to your family, to your friends, and for those who have taught you and helped you with your scholarship in the university. I think they deserve a round of applause as well. We hope that you will remain in touch with the university. We hope that our honorary graduates will remain in touch with the university, which is proud of you all and which wants to think of you from whatever part of the world you come as part of our international community. The third point I want to make is passingly political, but I'm allowed to do these things now. I'm beyond all human ambition. A few weeks ago, the government produced a white paper on the future of higher education in this country. And it sort of began a sort of debate. But a debate which is now drained away into the thankless deserts of Mesopotamia and into all the other controversies which dominate any government's agenda. I think it's very important that we don't actually allow that debate to splutter out. Because I believe it's a debate which is of immense importance to the future of this country. In their response to the government's white paper, the Vice-Chancellors of English universities drew attention to a table from the last report of the OECD, the group of rich industrial countries, 28 of them. And it showed that Britain spent as a proportion of our national wealth on higher education less than 24 of the 28 countries in that list. We're proud of our universities. We're proud of what they've contributed to scholarship in this country, to culture, what they've contributed to our technological development, to our economic growth, what they have contributed to the values of a pluralist, democratic society. Why then do we treat them like our railway system? We really will fall behind in terms of competitiveness. We really will fall below the levels which should be set by a civilized country unless we face up to the fact that we invest far too little in our universities in Britain. People very often talk quite properly about the amount that's provided by the alumni, by business, by the private sector to American universities. If you compare what happens in this country, there are only 2 British universities which in terms of their endowments would get into the list of the top 150 in the United States. But it's not just that American citizens give more generously to their universities as private individuals. Americans give more to their universities as taxpayers to their universities. I make these points just in the hope that you will take away from this afternoon's very happy occasion, a happy occasion for all of us, one or two reflections about the importance of this occasion for those you love and cherish who've been honoured today, and through them the importance of a university for the whole of our society. And I hope you'll make a point next time you get the opportunity of reminding people from pubs to political meetings that we underinvest in our higher education at our peril. No political speech. Will you please stand? I too, I hope, will stand in a moment or two. This congregation is now dissolved.
Thank you. Congratulations so much. I did, but I thought I got into the honorary degree. I actually saw that you were all sorting on Hello, you made it. Hi.
What you study?
They're videoing the whole thing. Then put it on the website.